There is a question I want you to sit with before I say anything else. Not a question you try to solve with logic, but a question you actually feel inside your body. If your desire was already finished, completely finished, not in progress, not coming soon, but already fully done, how would you be standing right now? How would your breath feel? What expression would your face naturally carry? What would your mind be focused on when you wake up tomorrow and go to work? Would you still be checking signs? Would you still be watching for proof? Would you still be trying to calculate outcomes, running scenarios in your head, or asking whether it is really going to happen for you? No, you would not. You would simply be living, moving through your day like someone who has already arrived. And that quality, that very specific inner feeling of someone who is no longer waiting, is exactly what most people fail to enter. It is not the technique they lack. It is not visualization. It is not affirmations. It is the inner posture of already being there. Most people cannot hold this question not because it is complex, but because something inside them resists settling into it. Something keeps pulling them back into the identity of the one who is still waiting, still checking, still hoping, still doubting. And that pulling force is the only real barrier between you and what you want. I am Abdullah. I taught Neville Goddard for 5 years, starting in 1933. And the most important correction I ever gave any student was never a new method. It was never a more advanced visualization or a stronger prayer technique. It was always the same correction. You are living in the wrong tense. You are treating your desire as something that has not happened yet. And as long as you do that, you are correct in your experience. It has not happened. But listen carefully now, not just with your mind, but with your awareness. It is already done, not partly done, not on its way. Not moving toward you like a delivery in transit. Done. Complete. Finished in the invisible order of reality where everything begins before it appears. Creation is already complete. Neville understood this deeply and repeated it throughout his teaching. Every state of consciousness you could ever enter already exists. The version of you who has what you want is already a finished state. The person with financial freedom already exists as a state. The person in the relationship you desire already exists as a state. The version of you living in peace, certainty, and confidence is already real in consciousness. Your task is not to build that version from nothing. Your task is to stop occupying a different version. That single realization changes everything, because now you are no longer trying to force reality to form. You are not trying to push life into shape through effort and repetition. You are selecting a state that already exists. You are moving awareness. You are shifting identity. You are choosing where you live internally. When you think you are building something, you are in struggle. You are adding technique on top of technique, trying to accumulate enough inner effort to eventually produce outer change. But when you understand that the state already exists, you stop building and start occupying. You stop striving and start selecting. You stop reaching and start embodying. So the real question becomes very simple. Which state am I occupying right now? And if it is not the state where your desire is already fulfilled, then you move again, you return, you shift back. That is the entire practice. Now here is where most people repeatedly fall off track. You sit down, you close your eyes, you do your imaginal act. You see the scene, you feel it for a moment. There is a sense of relief, a sense of, this is real. For a short time you are in it. Then you open your eyes, and reality is unchanged. And immediately, often without noticing, you slip back into the old identity. You think, it has not happened yet. I can see it has not happened. And in that single thought, you undo the shift. This is not failure. This is misunderstanding. The imaginal act is not a message sent out to the universe to see if it returns. It is not a request. It is not a signal. It is a declaration of identity. It is you choosing a state for a moment. And identity is not something you do for 10 minutes a day. Identity is where you automatically return when you are not thinking about it. So the real test is not what you do in meditation. The real test is what state you live in during the rest of your day. Between your imaginal sessions, what version of you is active? Most people live in the state of lack without realizing it. They walk through the day collecting evidence of absence. No money yet, no message yet, no change yet, no movement yet. And they quietly repeat this to themselves in different forms all day long. That constant inner commentary reinforces the very state they are trying to escape. You might spend 10 or 15 minutes in imagination feeling fulfilled, and then spend the next 14 hours reinforcing the opposite state through thought, doubt, and interpretation of circumstances. Naturally, the dominant state wins, not because the practice is weak, but because repetition and duration shape identity far more than isolated moments of feeling. The outer world is not showing you what is coming. It is showing you what has already been assumed. It is the result of a past inner state. When you look at it with frustration or fear, you are not changing it, you are continuing it. You are planting again. So what do you actually do? The correction is not effort. The correction is remembrance. You remember the truth of the state. You return to it. Not as wishful thinking placed over fear, but as an inner knowing that this is already decided in consciousness. The imaginal realm is primary. The physical world is secondary. It is simply delayed reflection. Before continuing, there is something practical that may help you apply this more consistently. A simple guide designed to bring you back when you slip out of the fulfilled state, especially when doubt appears or when the external world feels heavy and convincing. It is called the Manifest Reset. It offers a few simple inner shifts that help you return to the feeling of already having what you desire. If you want it, you can comment the word reset and it will be shared with you. It is based on these same principles, simplified for daily use when the mind becomes noisy or reactive. Now let me share something Neville recorded in his teachings. A woman attended one of his lectures where he spoke about the feeling behind the phrase, "Isn't it wonderful?" Not tied to any specific outcome, but a pure feeling that something good is already happening. This woman was 55 years old. She had no job, no savings, was behind on rent, and her life situation looked completely unstable. By her own account, she felt she had nothing left to lose. She began practicing what she heard, not by listing desires, not by trying to visualize every problem solved, but by focusing each night as she fell asleep on that one feeling. Isn't it wonderful? Something wonderful is happening to me now. She did not force it. She simply returned to the feeling as often as she could while falling asleep. She continued this for about 2 months. Then one day, she had a brief conversation with someone she barely knew, a casual acquaintance who mentioned a trip to New York. Nothing significant seemed to come from it at the time, so she forgot about it completely. A month later, that same man unexpectedly showed up at her door. He handed her a certified check made out in her name for $2,500. Through a chain of events she could never have planned, an old friend she had not seen in 25 years had decided to share part of his wealth with her. Over time, she continued receiving monthly support through his attorney, enough for stability, comfort, and a completely new way of living. What changed was not effort, it was not struggle, it was not planning, it was a sustained inner state, gently held and returned to, until outer events reorganized around it. And then she received legal documents confirming that same income would continue for the rest of her life. She did not visualize it. She did not plan it. She had no idea it was even possible. She simply stayed in the feeling that something wonderful was already happening, and life reorganized itself around that feeling in ways her logical mind could never have predicted. Now notice something very specific about what she did and what it actually means for you. She did not hold that state perfectly for 2 straight months without any fluctuation. She was human. She had an old, worn-out car and almost no money in her bank account. Her outer circumstances completely contradicted what she was assuming inside. And still, she returned again and again, night after night, to that feeling. She did not fight reality. She did not argue with what her senses showed her. She did not try to convince herself that the evidence was false. She simply kept coming back to the feeling of something already fulfilled, already finished, already done. That returning is the real practice, not the first moment you enter the state. The returning, the gentle coming back after drifting away, the quiet and almost unnoticed act of placing yourself again into the feeling of it is already here. That is what consistent practice truly looks like. Not 2 months of perfect, uninterrupted focus, but 2 months of returning over and over, and life, which cannot do anything else, mirrors that return. This is the law in action. The ending she lived in was not a detailed mental movie with fixed scenes or specific steps. It was the inner sense of being someone for whom good things were already completed. And because she genuinely lived from that inner position, the outer world had no option but to reflect it back to her. Now I want to talk about something most teachings avoid because it is uncomfortable to admit, and even more uncomfortable to recognize in yourself. The reason you fall out of the state is not simply doubt. Doubt is only a surface symptom. The real reason is that your inner dialogue is not aligned with your assumption. You declare in your practice that it is done, but the rest of your day you speak as someone for whom it is not done. You ask when it will happen. You wonder why it is taking so long. You question whether you did it right. You think maybe another method is needed. And each of these inner statements is a quiet exit from the state. Each one returns you to the identity of a person waiting instead of a person who already has. Neville made this very clear. He taught that your inner speech is your true prayer, not your formal visualization, not those few minutes before sleep, but the ongoing conversation you maintain with yourself throughout the day. That continuous inner talk is what defines the state you actually occupy. So ask yourself again the same question. If your desire were already fulfilled, what would your inner conversation sound like? Not during a technique, but in ordinary life. While eating breakfast, while traveling, while sitting in silence, while doing nothing in particular. A person who truly believes their desire is fulfilled does not keep checking mentally whether it is coming or not. They are simply living, they are being. The thought of searching for proof does not even arise, because someone who already has something does not keep looking for signs that they have it. They just have it. Start observing your inner speech as if it were a broadcast being sent into a highly responsive medium, because in a way it is. That medium is consciousness itself, and it is always listening, always accepting, always reflecting back whatever is most consistently impressed upon it. It never fails to confirm what you repeatedly tell yourself. If you change the message, you change the reflection. It truly is that simple. But simplicity does not mean ease. It requires honesty, deeper honesty than most people are willing to practice. You must be willing to catch yourself mid-thought, mid-sentence, mid-story, and shift without emotional struggle. No drama, no self-blame. Just a calm recognition. That was the old story, and here is the new one. It is already done. That is the level of embodiment being pointed to here. Not acting, not forcing emotions that are not naturally present, not pushing through resistance with sheer willpower while repeating phrases without feeling. Real embodiment is quieter than all of that. It feels like stability, like someone who is no longer waiting, like a deep internal stillness where argument has ended. And the truth about that stillness is this: you do not arrive at it through effort. You arrive at it through returning. Every time your thoughts drift back into lack, into delay, into uncertainty, you simply notice and return. You gently say to yourself, without tension, it is already done. You shift back, not forcefully, but naturally, like adjusting your direction while walking without panic, just steady correction. The state of fulfillment is not a summit you climb once and then struggle to maintain forever. It is a place you return to again and again. The door is never locked. You can step back into it at any moment. And the more you return, the less time you spend outside of it, until eventually you realize you have been inside it for days, then weeks, then longer, without even noticing the transition. And by that time, your outer reality begins to look completely different. Not because you forced it to change, but because the inner assumption changed, and the outer world simply reflected it faithfully. This is why I say with certainty that transformation does not come from one big breakthrough moment. It comes from consistency in returning, from coming back again and again to the knowing, even if that means 10 times a day, or 20 times a day, without judgment, without telling yourself you failed because you drifted. Drifting is natural, returning is everything. And if you have been trying different approaches and still feel distance between where you are and where you want to be, there is something important available to you. The 5 resets we prepared are designed exactly for this. The Manifest Reset is a free guide built around this principle. 5 simple and practical tools for the exact moments when your assumption slips. One of the resets directly addresses doubt and delay, because that is where most people collapse. They maintain the state for a while, and then waiting turns into evidence of absence, and they begin to question everything. Another reset focuses on inner speech drift, giving you a direct way to return to the feeling of fulfillment even on difficult days. Comment the word reset under this video, and it will be sent to you at no cost. Now, let me close with this. You are not someone trying to manifest a life. That idea itself creates separation. It makes you someone on the outside trying to pull something toward you. But the deeper truth is much simpler and far more powerful. You are already a state of consciousness, right now. In this exact moment, you are occupying a specific inner state. The only question is which one. And because every state already exists, because everything is already formed in consciousness, because nothing is missing in the field of creation, you can step into the state of fulfillment immediately, without earning it, without proving anything, without asking permission from circumstances or from people, including yourself. You do not ask permission to enter a room you already know is yours. You just walk in. Step into the state where your desire is already fulfilled, not later, not after signs appear, now. Carry that inner certainty through your day quietly, without forcing it, without announcing it, without trying to defend it. Just a calm knowing that does not need validation from the outside world. Let the outer world move however it moves. It can only ever reflect what is already being assumed within. So keep your assumption clean, keep it steady, keep it in the tense of already done, and trust the principle that Neville taught throughout his entire life. It is not a law that sometimes works and sometimes fails. It is not a law that selects certain people or rewards effort. It is absolute, like gravity. Constant, neutral, always responding. It is responding to your assumption right now. The only question is what you are giving it to respond to. Give it the feeling of the done. And if you are ready to go deeper, there is one final question I want to leave with you before you go. If the outer world has no power over your inner state, then why do so many external things feel like they can still disturb your peace? If you are truly the cause and not the effect, then why does a word someone says, a door that closes, or a number in your account sometimes feel like a final judgment? That is exactly what the next video explains. It is titled, Why Nothing Should Ever Bother You, and it will take everything discussed here and reveal the other side of the same truth.